When 16-year-old Ruby, living alone in the remote mountains of the Philippines, got a job offer, it seemed too good to pass up.
But it was a trap. Ruby was tricked into the dark world of online sexual exploitation of children.
But this isn't the story of a victim.
It's the story of a fierce survivor.
We're previewing Finding Ruby.
That's on this episode of So Much Crime,
So Little Time. Welcome to So Much Crime, So Little Time. I'm Jeff.
And I'm Dee, and in this episode we'll introduce you to Finding Ruby from Cadence Media.
If you haven't listened to Finding Ruby, that's great. This is one of our preview episodes.
Here we only discuss episode 1 and introduce you to the series. No spoilers for what's to come.
You'll also find a link to Finding Ruby in our show notes.
In our next episode, we'll discuss the whole series, but right now we just want to decide if this is a crime that's worth your time.
So, Dee, on this show, we talk about some pretty dark stuff, and today we're talking about maybe the darkest of dark stuff, but to keep it a little bit lighter before we get to that, we're going to do our little segment. If you're new here, we like to take ourselves back to when this crime occurred and focus on something lighter for just a few minutes. And so we're going to hop in the time machine. All right, I have started with two quick news items. I went to news from Ireland from March 2013 because I thought,
look at you go.
I wasn't even there. Here. And this is a fill in the blank question.
Okay.
And I want you to know that for both of these Ireland trivia questions, I don't know how to say the words.
Amazing. The words that you blanked out. Did you blank them out purely because you don't know how to pronounce them?
Oh, no, I blanked out a word I know how to say. The first word in this, or the second word after the, I don't know how to say, but I'm going to say it phonetically, and then you're going to laugh at me, and then you're going to tell me the correct way to say it. That's how this is going to go.
Can't wait. Love it.
Again, this is how I would phonetically say this word.
Okay.
The Taoiseach.
Taoiseach.
Taoiseach. It's not how it's spelled.
Well, it is if you're speaking the right language.
All right.
Taoiseach, it's like our prime minister.
Say it again.
Taoiseach. Like tea,
Taoiseach.
you're drinking a cup of tea. Shock.
That's better. That helped. Yeah, the visuals help. The Taoiseach, Enda Kenny, presented, I know all the rest of the words, presented a bowl of blank to U.S. President
Shamrock.
Barack Obama in Washington, D.C. Yes.
This happens every year.
Really? That seems like horribly stereotypical Irish. It could have been a bowl of Lucky
It
Charms.
happens
But
every year.
Okay.
We
All
don't
right,
have
second.
Lucky Charms in Ireland. That would be incredibly terrible. This is one of your
Was Enda Kenny
stereotypes here.
like dressed in like a green leprechaun suit or no? Is this like offensive?
He's the chief leprechaun of the country.
All right, I have one more
No.
news fact.
Okay.
All right, this one's actually about a
Fill in the
Canadian.
blanks again.
It's a fill in the blank. Astronaut Chris
This is
Hadfield.
not Irish.
It is Irish. It's going to get there. It starts with
Okay.
a Canadian. Astronaut Chris Hadfield, who
Oh yeah,
was
saw him before.
on board the International Space Station in March of
Mm-hmm.
2013, celebrated St. Patrick's Day in a couple of ways. First off, took a photograph of Ireland from orbit while wearing a green shirt as well as a green dicky bow. I had to look up dicky bow. Turns out it's just a bow tie.
Oh,
And- yeah.
Interesting. You guys don't call it that. Okay.
Okay. Chris Hadfield sent out a tweet. And again, this is I'm going to say this phonetically and then you're going to correct me. Maiden Mahaith.
What's the context?
It's something to the effect of good morning.
Oh,
or
Majin Ma. Majin Ma.
Majin Ma. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Like the letters
like,
just mean nothing in Irish.
It's a different freaking language. Have you not been learning? What have you been learning on Duolingo for like 17 years?
Spanish, where you say all the letters
Okay.
like they appear on the page.
No, they're pronounced differently.
Buenos
Like, they don't
dias
say Jose.
is spelled Buenos dias.
They don't say Jose. They say Jose. Because it's a different language.
All right, let's get to the part. See if you
No.
can get this.
Hold on a second now. You cool your jets. Even the Americans don't say all the right letters for English.
Are you saying English is a complicated, difficult language that doesn't make sense? Hold on. I did not get 2 degrees. All right, wait, say it again.
Majin.
Majin.
Mm-hmm. Ma.
Majin Ma. What does that mean?
Majin Ma. Good morning.
Okay, so Majin Ma from the International Space Station. Happy St. Patrick's
The
Day.
way you say ma.
Oh, I don't
Like,
fucking know.
Majin ma.
Okay, so that was his tweet. Happy St. Patrick's Day to the Irish.
Try
all
it
around
one
the
more
globe.
time. Majin ma. Like, end it quicker. Don't say ma.
Majin Ma.
Much
Great.
better. Look at
All
you.
right. And
What would Duolingo say? Do-new-new.
Chris posted a recording of him singing a song. What song was he singing?
He posted a recording of him singing a song on St. Patrick's Day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an Irish song. Like, it's not a song off Squelga. Like, it's not in Irish. It's in English.
It's in English.
Is it is it a popular song that was by a popular singer who
No.
may not be around? Okay.
I believe it's a traditional song.
Okay.
Old.
There are lots of them. Had you heard of this song before?
100% heard of this song. Could sing the song to you right now if I wanted to, but I don't, and I won't.
Give me the first word.
It's 2 words in the title.
Oh.
It's a
Well,
name.
give me the first word of the song. Oh, Molly Malone.
Nope.
Oh.
First word of the song. First word of the song is "oh."
Okay, first longer word of the song, please.
Then it's the name of the song. Next word is "the." Next word, pipes.
Oh, Danny Boy.
Mm-hmm.
That was played at my granny's funeral. That song.
Okay.
Oh, Danny Boy.
My last new segment on the time machine. So I have a trivia quiz related to one of the biggest news items of March 2013.
Okay.
One of the biggest news items is also a big news item of 2025 as we are recording this and roughly around the time that this episode is going to be released to all of our legions of fans. And that is a papal conclave. So March 12th, 2013, a papal conclave began. And I have a series of questions for you. They get harder as they go. First question.
God.
The 2013 papal conclave was happening to replace which pope?
Pope John Paul.
Mm-mm.
I feel like I'm back in the convent.
Starts with a B.
Benedict.
Benedict the 16th. All right.
Indeed.
Who
That's what I
was
gonna say.
named the pope in the papal conclave of 2013?
Your man who just popped his clogs.
What's his name? His pope name.
He wasn't John Paul.
Starts with an F.
Francis.
There it is. All right. Okay. Those are the easy ones.
Oh, great. We're off to a fantastic start.
A couple more. All right. There were betting odds at the time of who was going to become the pope. And I've got 2 betting odds questions for you. There was someone who had 10,000 to 1 betting odds. And this was someone who was a fictional Irish priest. In 2013, there were 10,000 to 1 odds.
Dougal.
From Father Ted, yes.
Did
Okay.
you know how to say his name?
Father Dougal
Were you
Maguire.
saying Dougal?
Dougal?
Yeah, but were you saying Dougal? Like, was that how you were pronouncing it in your head?
I was just waiting for you to say it and hoping you got that one.
Were you?
All right.
Were you Dougal? Oh my God, I should have made you say Dougal. That would have been very funny.
I don't know that I would have said Dougal.
What would you
Actually,
said?
I didn't actually think about it. Anyway. All right. That was 10,000 to 1 odds. Didn't happen. Also fictional. So probably,
Unfortunately.
honestly, I feel like
I mean-
10,000 to 1 is surprisingly low odds. 1,000 to 1 odds. Another Irish person, real person. Who do you think that was?
Not a priest.
No. Do you want a clue?
Yeah.
All right. Irish singer.
Oh. Sinead O'Connor.
Sadly, the Pope has to be a man, so not Sinead O'Connor.
Oh. Was it Oh my God. Your mom. Oh my God. I'm thinking of Owen McLove. Did you watch Father Ted? Owen
watched
McLove
clips.
is the parody of oh my God, I can't believe I've forgotten his name. Daniel O'Donnell.
I don't know who that is.
Oh my God, it's not right.
No.
It's hardly Bono.
It's Bono. Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Daniel O'Donnell would make for a better Pope. Pope Bono would be funny.
All right, I got 2 more. So
Go on.
Pope Francis became the Pope. As a young man, Francis fell very hard for a girl named Amalia de Monte. They wrote secret love letters until her parents discovered this and shut it down. He famously told her, "If I can't marry you, I'll become a priest." Question is, how old was he when this happened?
12.
That's right.
Is it?
Damn.
I hadn't heard that before.
Okay. I hadn't either. That was a good story, though.
Look at me with my Pope facts.
Last question. This is a multiple choice question. Before he became a priest and then a pope, Pope Francis had jobs just like the rest of us. Which one of these places is a real place that Pope Francis worked when he was a younger man? Number 1, accounting firm. Number 2, sock factory. Number 3, nightclub.
A sock factory.
It's a trick question. He did all 3.
He worked in a nightclub?
He was a bouncer in a nightclub.
Stop it. You're joking.
Best pope ever? I don't know. Best pope ever, I think.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. That was our time machine for today. What a time that was.
What a time. Well done.
Do you remember what it was like when you were waiting for that white smoke?
I mean, so much waiting. Kyle, didn't you have so much waiting? There was so much waiting happening. But what happens when you're waiting sometimes is like, you maybe should, as my mum would say, a watched pot would never boil. Why not take out your phone and instead of watching the pot or watching for the white smoke, go to patreon.com/so much crime, so little time. Kyle, I'm speaking to you. You go there while you're waiting and you will get longer time machines. You love the time machines. We know you love the time machines. You'll get longer ones there. You'll get early release episodes, bonus content, outtakes, and you get to support the two of us. What more could you need?
And if you're sitting there wondering, who's this Kyle guy? Go listen to episode 100 and do yourself a favor. It's great. You'll love it. All right, so let's talk about what Finding Ruby is. So this came out in 2022. The host is Rich Thompson, who is the creative director of Cadence Media. I went down a bit of a rabbit hole trying to find out more about Cadence Media. It's not a podcast company. We can talk about that later. There are 6 episodes. They are about 40 to 50 minutes per episode. A couple of quick notes. This podcast won a bunch of awards. It won in the Australian Podcast Awards, the Best New Podcast of 2023, in the Shorty Impact Award. It won by Content the Human Rights Award in 2023. It got second place, a gold honor in the Shorty Impact Awards for Best Podcast. It was a finalist for the Australian Podcast Awards for Best True Crime Podcast and Best Documentary. And it was a finalist in the Anthem Awards for Humanitarian Action and Services. Whew. All right.
Here, Jeff, before we dive into the story there, and because it's a tough topic to discuss and to listen about, although it is very important. I want to know, when you were reading Shorty, were you saying, "Go Shorty, it's your birthday"? Because that's all that was happening in my head.
Yes, that's all I could think. It was actually a little bit in my head. Yeah, you're right. You're not wrong.
Okay, but what is the story here? So in episode 1, we meet Ruby. She's the youngest of 10 kids living on a farm in the remote mountains of an area of the Philippines. Her father dies in 2008. Her mother then died a couple of years later. So for 2 years, Ruby was living alone. Then one day she gets this mysterious job offer. She follows it across the Philippines only to realize she's been tricked into the world of OSEC, the online sexual exploitation of children. We also learn about this world, how it was new and growing in 2013 and very hard to stop. The children are very real and about half are under 12 years old. And the customers are online, easily anonymous and spread out all around the world.
Yeah, and I'd like to note that, so that's a plot summary for episode 1, which we sort of rearranged to be more chronological. I think it's not the way that the episode flows, but just trying to make it simple and short. Yeah, so Dee, this is a heavy one. This is a tough one. Where do you want to start talking about this?
Indeed, it is a tough one. I think let's focus in on maybe the format and some of the creative style and the way that this podcast was told, and then maybe we can dive in a little bit to some more about the story. How does that feel?
Yeah, I mean, I had opinions about that just like right from the opening. I thought it's interesting because I feel like this is it's kind of a highly produced podcast. Like there's music and sound effects. There's actually a song with lyrics that is sort of played at the beginning and end of the episode. And I was trying to get a read, like, what's the tone of the music and the song? And I feel like it is sort of inspirational or positive, which I feel like kind of cuts at the incredible darkness of the story, but also gets to that point of like, this is ultimately supposed to be, or we're told this is going to be not a story about tragedy and misery, but about like resilience and triumph. Like we don't get there in episode 1, but I feel like the music kind of helps set the stage for where we're going.
And you say we don't get there in episode 1, but I think what's important to note here is the victim in the story that we're focused on is Ruby, but we hear from Ruby within, the opener, like before anything else. And so I think it's very, I completely agree with the music cutting in. It felt at odds nearly with the story being told, but that's what I think was supposed to happen. I felt like that was the plan the whole way through. So often through it, we're hit with these different segments, the way the story is told, it kind of cuts all of a sudden. When you think of the story being laid out in comparison to the music, as you're saying, like it is at odds with each other. And like that's the theme throughout. At one point throughout, we hear this kind of sidebar that I want to talk to you about a little bit later, about a conversation that the host is having with another dad at a play date. That kind of comes out of nowhere, but there's a point in it. There's an uncomfortable point in that where they're at this gorgeous venue having a play date and then also having this really horrible conversation, or a conversation about this really hard to talk about topic, and then the other dad doesn't want to talk about it anymore. And as I said, we'll delve into that a bit more, but that's kind of at odds with it. And then even as the music comes back at the end and the tension is really building, then Ruby realizes what actually is happening. And all of this, it just felt all the way through there was something not quite right. Even Liam Neeson showing up in the middle of it. Yeah. This is a really serious podcast, and there's a clip played from Taken. Again, it's kind of at odds, and I think the whole point is that jolt of, yeah, this is uncomfortable. Yeah, this isn't going to play out exactly as you wanted. Like, yeah, Liam Neeson will be here, and we're going to talk about something really uncomfortable, but this is uncomfortable. But if we don't speak about it, then who does? If these girls and these children are allowed to live this because we're in a privileged position of being uncomfortable, what happens? Nothing. And so that opening part, it felt so pivotal, and it really stood up the whole theme, I think, of this first episode.
I think that's right. There was no need for the music to emphasize or further take us down that road into misery, because the story does that on its own in the little bits and pieces we hear about Osek. Like we don't need any more there. And if anything, like we need to kind of counterbalance that because it's so inherently awful. And
yeah,
one of the things I was thinking about that I wanted to ask you about is when we started this podcast, this feels like a lifetime ago, one of the things that you said that you would never do was a story like this, a story about children in kind of harm's way in this way. And here we are, episode 107.
You technically tricked me into doing this, though.
I don't like the sound of that. That makes me sound awful.
I mean, you chose this podcast to do, but I think in a way within this, you hadn't even got to ask me a question, but I presume what you're asking is like, how are you feeling about doing this in general? I think in a way, any reservation I had as someone who enjoys listening to true crime was really my reservations and my discomfort was really kind of squashed by listening to this first episode. And I think that was likely the point. Similar to what we were saying about the music and how things are at odds the whole way through. The point is, yeah, this is uncomfortable. Nobody's surely going to sit down and be like, oh, can't wait to listen to a story about children getting exploited. Like nobody's going to do, like that isn't going to be the choice. And yet, if we don't talk about it, what are we, only bystanders? Like we're actually just ignoring, we're turning our back on them.
Yeah. And the reason why I think this was okay for us to cover and why I even considered bringing it was because this isn't a podcast where I feel like there's any element of sort of salaciousness or sort of playing into that like lurid, like let's be crime tourists. There's none of that here. This is all about like advocacy and bringing attention to an issue that is important and is just needs to be sort of surfaced, but it's doing it in, I think, a very kind of tactful, artful way, respectful way. And but you know, there's no getting around. Like, this is hard to listen to. This, like, I listened to this episode twice, and the second time, I struggled to get through it a second time, just because it was hard to be doing something else while listening to this. It kind of commanded my attention.
Well, you felt like probably you needed to give it the respect of the attention as well, I'm sure. That's certainly how I felt.
100%.
I mean,
which is also why when you bring up things like the Taken reference, like when Liam Neeson's voice pops up, like that
was jarring.
Was
You're
very
like,
jarring.
What? Why are you here?
Well, I think about some of the other podcasts we've talked about that treated some very horrific crimes with a little bit of sort of flippancy. And I think this doesn't do that. I think this treats Ruby with a lot of respect, and it takes the crime very seriously, but it also finds these sort of moments of levity.
So, yeah, absolutely. I was kind of thinking, like, is this how we use the time machine as a way of being like, let's have a joke and a laugh, but also we're not going to do that while we're talking about actual crimes that have happened. It was a little bit bizarre, but maybe it was just a great way to bring any sort of lightness to this story.
Well, and I think it does the same thing with Ruby's story. Like, Ruby's story is the part before she gets this job has some real dark elements to it, right? Like, both of her parents die in kind of quick succession. Her whole world kind of gets turned upside down. She is 14 when her mom dies. So her dad dies first when she's about like 11 or so, and then her mom gets cancer and dies. Her dad has a stroke. But we hear these stories of her time before that when her parents were both still alive, and there's this like really adorable story of her out with her dad, and her dad like tumbling down a hill, and like there's these moments of real joy, and then they're, you know, kind of cut against what happens after. Like, before this crime takes place, I mean, she's living alone for 2 years in this remote house, and her contact is really with her sisters who come and visit, and they are seemingly like abusive, like physically abusive to her, because they hear rumors about her that, you know, for all we know are untrue. But I feel like we get such a complete, like, whole rounded picture of what her life was like.
And yet, yeah, and she does, like, she stays at the center of the entire episode, which I think is really important. But that intensity and that darkness in the story, like, her story goes from being this kind of idyllic story, and then bit by bit it's built on. The darkness kind of comes, and it's kind of similar to how the music is dealt with, because I feel like it was kind of building throughout in intensity. You felt, I know it was at odds, like, it's more, it wasn't like moody music that is trying to build on it, but you could feel that hyping up.
Yeah,
I think.
Well, and I think you also, I was going to ask you how you felt about this, but like the sort of opening bit is she gets this job offer on, I think it's Facebook. Is it Facebook?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, Facebook. like the message comes, like, would you like a job? And then we hear about her sort of getting lured into this job with like these promise of like, you know, can she work nights so that she can study during the day, and how she was a good student. And like, I think on the surface you think like, oh, why would how could anybody possibly get tricked into this? Why wasn't she smarter? Why wasn't she more savvy?
This was months in the making.
That's the thing. Like, I feel like in just a few minutes of space, I feel like I totally understand why she made the decision she made, how she got tricked into this. Like, it's very, I think, understandable. It's very relatable. Like, she was in a rough spot, right? She'd been alone for 2 years.
Do you think they sought her out? Do you think they like knew that she was this vulnerable, or do you think that the net was cast across so many people, and then the few people that engaged and kept there were the more vulnerable ones?
I think probably the latter. I think it was probably just a wide net that she got caught in. What do you think?
I don't know. I was kind of going back and forth about it, because there is this note that her sisters are abusing her because of rumors that are going around about her, which felt interesting. They never went into like what those rumors were, but I don't know, like Facebook back then, people weren't hiding things. I don't know. I was just wondering whether whatever was going on there had something to do with her being sought out. But then I forget. There's a lot of people in the Philippines. They're probably just casting a net.
I think this is mentioned a little bit in the episode, but I mean, our host here, Rich Thompson and Cadence Media, like, this is not a podcast company. He's not a podcast host. This was a podcast host. This was a passion project of his. This was something. So this group, IJM, International Justice Mission, is a client of Cadence Media. And I think when he met Ruby,
I know IJM.
And he heard her speak, and I think he was compelled, like, this is something that is important. And I think
Wow.
I was thinking back to some of the other, like Thrasher Banks from Lords of Death, of like, this is personally important to me to put this story out there, and the best way for me to do this is a podcast. I think that's basically how this came to be a podcast. And I think despite the fact that this is, to my knowledge, his only podcast, I think he is a good host. And actually, the moment that you mentioned earlier that I think maybe we should talk about now is when he talks to their dad at the, what is it? It's
the play date where there's like a bouncy pillow or something.
Yeah.
Pillow cushion. I don't know I can't remember what it was called. Bizarre sounding thing. I love that he was like, I'd rather have been the child as opposed to the father. I wanted to go and play in it.
Yeah, I thought that was such an interesting thing to include.
It was so unique, and again, it came at such a jarring time. Like, we're in the middle of hearing Ruby's story, and then it's like, sidebar, like, I'm at the park with a play date with the dad, and you're like, this is mad. But I think what for me really worked here is, and I feel like it will really stay with me as part of this podcast, it'll be something that I really like remember, is it felt so real. This is so likely to happen. How often do you like stop, or maybe when you were younger, you're at a play date, you're at a party, whatever, just in the park, and you talk to another parent and you're talking about what you're doing, what you're looking into at the moment, and having that other dad say, oh, no, not for me. I don't want to hear about OSEC. It's just the way to kind of show, I think, what most people will say when they read a description about a podcast like this.
So first of all, I caught that you just called me old there indirectly, like how a long time ago when I had play dates with my kids. You think I don't still take my kids to play dates? I still take my kids to play dates. Okay, I don't. But the specific quote, and I wrote this down, that the other dad who he's telling about this story and about OSEC, the other dad says, oh, that's too heavy for me, mate. I don't want to think about anything like that. And then our host flips that and says, we have to face this. If we don't talk about this, think about this, then it keeps happening. And he brings in this metaphor of the anti-slavery movement and that example of that map of the slave ship. And I'm sure you've seen that map, that diagram of the bodies, how they're stacked into slave ships. And and he says this, but like, you can't unsee that. Like, once you've seen that image, it just brings this abstract concept of the Middle Passage and slavery with such intensity of like, this is so horrific and this is so inhumane. That was so powerful. And I think in a way, like, this podcast is the 21st century version of something like that. Like, once you hear this story, hopefully you cannot forget about it. You talk about it, you tell people about it, and it hopefully causes some change. Like, I think this is definitely a world that I did not think about before.
And we didn't want, like, I actively said I didn't want to, not this story in particular, but I didn't want to go there. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like this sidebar really put that in my face and was like, yeah, that's a privileged position to be in. Like, oh, I don't want to hear about that. That's too upsetting.
And having that dad at the play date was such like a good proxy for what we're all feeling as we listen to this episode. Yeah. Like, oh, maybe I'll stop listening to this. But like, no, like that's a cop-out. I'm really curious. So we often end these by talking about how eager you are to keep listening. I think eager is the wrong word for this one. I think I am curious to hear how the story is told in its entirety. If I'm eager for anything, it's just to kind of hear your thoughts on this once we get to the end of it and how we feel about it at the end. And again, like, we know we're going to get to a place of triumph and that this has a happy ending. I'm a little bit dreading what I presume is going to be like the episode 2, 3, 4. I don't know. There's only 6 total episodes. I feel like it's going to get darker before it gets brighter. We're going to go through this. We're going to come back and recap it. And And like I said, I'm really curious to hear what our listeners think of this. So this is definitely one that I'm really eager to hear. If you have comments, to leave comments. But yeah, we'll come back and talk about in the recap. If you have comments on this episode, if you have thoughts on how we're doing, leave us a comment on Spotify, on Apple. You can also leave comments on any of our posts on the social medias. We're on Instagram. If you're not following us already on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on YouTube. Definitely check us out there. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Give us a rating on Spotify, on Apple. 5 stars. We definitely appreciate that. And of course, tell a friend. We'd love for you to share this podcast with all of your friends. And yeah, and we'll be back next time to talk about the rest. Next time, we'll discuss what Ruby endured.
But we'll also get into how she got out and how she made this a story of triumph.
We'll be discussing all of Finding Ruby.
That's on the next So Much Crime.
So Little Time.
So Much Crime, So Little Time is a production of MimeGov Media. The executive producer is Paxton Calariso. Our associate producer is Blythe Ty. Theme music was composed by Vyacheslav Starostin. If you haven't done it yet, please subscribe to this show in your podcast app. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating and a review. Even better, tell your friends. To join the discussion, look for us on social media. Check out the show notes for all the links. Thanks for listening.